Hey, what's up guys? JB here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the latest summer unit, Summer Glaciela. She really hasn't been out all that long over in JP, just about a month now, and she's going to be coming here to our side of the game this week. This is going to be the fourth version of Glaciela coming into the game, and she's going to be coming in as a very powerful frontline tank, sort of switching up the role there from the damage dealer variants of the past. So we do have the data from the JP side to look at, so let's dive into it and take a look. So Glaciela will be joining War of the Visions as the latest 100 cost water unit. She's going to be part of that Sword A Red Mage weapon group. She has base 3-1 movement and she can wear hats and cloth. Her TMR is going to be her sandals. We do have a diamond area of effect here that's going to be centered on the caster. This one's going to give that 20% fire and water resistance to your allies, while also bestowing 25% unit resistance to yourself. So the effect here is pretty similar to some TMRs we have seen in the past, most notably Starlight Ellen is TMR, just coming in with a different elemental resist here on the effect. I do like this one quite a bit. It's going to be very useful for some specific elemental matchups out there in the game. Now moving on to Glaciela's stats, it's going to be a very similar story here statistically to some other recent tanks we've seen come into the game. We're going to have very strong HP numbers here. Her base HP is going to be good for second overall in the game, with her total innate HP not really falling far behind that mark. She's going to have access to a 15% HP that she can put on in her passives that you can use to amplify that even further. Aside from that, we're going to be looking at an above average luck value here of 188. Other than that though, we are sort of looking at average or below average numbers here across the board. Her innate agility of 65 is a little bit on the slow side, but she does have an agility passive that she can use to sort of amp that up and bring that up further. It is going to be tied into a mobility up there though, so it's sort of hit or miss whether you'd want to take that into auto PvP. Looking at the mitigation numbers next, we've got 14 defense and 0 spirit, so already leaning more towards that physical side. For resistances, we're going to have 25% to slash, 20% to strike, and then 10% to both missile and magic. Her only weakness here is going to be against pierce damage, but it is coming in at just a -5 value, so really not all that hard to cover with vision cards or espers. For ailment resistances, she has 50% to both poison and stop, and then 10% against doom. Stop probably has the most relevance here. That's a pretty common one out there in the meta, but poison resist I think is going to be sneaky good, especially in the fire elemental matchups. You think about Ildira specifically does have poison on some of her attacks. And then just announced today, we do have the Mage Saul is going to be coming in over on the JP side. We should be seeing him soon as well. For her mastery ability, she's going to get 10% to HP and 10% unit resistance. And then if you do take her all the way up to level 140, she's going to pick up that 5 and 8 hate, 15 healing power, and then an upgrade to her job level 12 skill. So that 5 hate there is something that you are able to combo with her main passive ability. It's going to get her up to that 10 innate hate, so she is going to be matching some of the more modern tanks that we've seen come into the game. She does pick up that 15 area resistance on that passive as well, so she's going to have some nice access to some impenetrable mitigation here on top. Now aside from that, she is going to be getting a new unique counter ability. It's called SPF 50, and this is going to be another one of those sort of great next generation style counters that we've seen coming in. This one's going to have a 70% chance to proc against either slash or magic damage, and if it triggers, it will reduce the damage coming in by a whopping 40%. So although her forte really is more against that physical damage side, assuming that she can get this to trigger for her, she's really not going to be all that weak against magic either. So we're continuing on here with the new look. Hopefully you guys enjoy this new sort of more concise review style. And let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now starting with her buffs here, the first one is going to have 2 effects. This one's going to get her an 80% elemental chain resistance as well as a protect status on top of that. Now, we've definitely seen the value of that chain resistance on tanks recently like Dialdo and Alphonse, and in certain matchups, it really can make a very nice difference. And then layering in that 25% physical reduction from Protect is going to be very, very nice for her. Her second buff is, again, going to be a self buff. This one's going to give her courage as well as an auto heal with a trigger at 50% of her health. This one is going to get an EX upgrade that's going to have an all new mechanic for the game. I think it's something that a lot of people have wanted in the game, including myself, and this one is going to have an aura ability that affects her allies within a 4-tile radius around her. And it will provide her teammates a 40% physical damage reduction, as well as a 40% to their accuracy rating. This is an extremely powerful game-changing style ability. There's a lot you're going to be able to do with this in terms of creative team building, sort of hedging against weaknesses that certain units out there where maybe today they're not able to take a hit from some of the physical units out there. This is going to allow them to do that. Now, there's currently no way to dispel or cancel this aura in the game other than killing Glaciela herself, and that is going to be a tall task for many units out there. Now, do note one caveat here is that this aura doesn't apply to Glaciela herself, only her teammates, so you're not going to be able to count on this extra layer of mitigation for Glaciela herself. Now, moving into the main kit, her first skill is going to be her low AP attack. Very short range here with the range of 2. It's going to have a range height of 1. We're going to have just a single effect here, and it's going to reduce the target CT by 20. Now, skill number 2, this one's going to be a range 3. It's got a range height of 1. It's going to be coming in with that medium 165% mod. This one's going to break physical barriers prior to the damage, and then it's going to actually apply a one-hit 70% physical barrier to Glaciela. Really cool ability. We've seen something similar in the past on Resol. I think this is great utility for a tank to have, especially in terms of that barrier break, especially when it's coming in for only a 20 AP cost. This one I think can really help enable some teammates out there that maybe don't have access to that natively in their kit. Now, skill number 3 is the one that is going to get upgraded as part of her 140 Awakening. I do have its final form listed here. This one's going to have a range of 3 with a range height of 1, again coming in with that medium 165 mod. This one's going to be a select 2 target ability, and it will raise her defense penetration by 40 prior to the damage coming in. This one is just a loaded skill here. We're going to have 3 additional effects on top of that, all coming in post damage. First one's going to be that Dispel on Re-Raise. It's going to be great against units out there like Raf, Darkfina, Wingstern, or Kefka. On top of that, it is going to debuff the defense penetration value of your targets by 30, while also increasing her own defense value by 40 for 1 turn. So just a phenomenal skill here. She's increasing her damage potential there with the defense penetration. She's giving valuable utility there with the Re-Raise Dispel, and then also increasing her survivability against physical units. I can see this comboing pretty well with some other units out there that might reduce or debuff slash res penetration on units, of which, you know, there are several out there. I think this skill here, along with that aura ability that we just looked at, are definitely going to be her marquee abilities. Now, skill number 4 here is going to be her Job 25 ability. It's getting up to a range of 3 there on the cross AoE, and it's again coming in with that 165 mod. Now, this one is going to be a guaranteed hit skill, and it does carry a 25% chance there to stop your targets. So I think this is a pretty good skill. Maybe not super exciting though, because I think that a lot of players out there are already protecting against that stop status, just because Darkfina has been around and in the meta for so long now. I do like this skill though much more for that guaranteed hit access here for her in the main kit, just because her accuracy is so bad as we saw there in the base stats. To be fair though, I think that's an issue that pretty much all the tanks out there in the game do share. Now finally, we are going to have the Limit Burst here, and again, this one is going to be a range of 3 with just a range height of 1. Prior to the damage, she will buff her own attack value by 40% for 3 turns, and she's going to pick up a second buff here as well, and that's going to be that 20% to area resistance. So as Limit Bursts go, it's not super exciting, but you know, it is pretty solid. It's going to give her a couple of nice buffs here. You know, if she did pick up an area resist buff from maybe from a teammate there at the beginning of the battle, this is going to give her a way to sort of extend that into the mid-fight and keep that survivability going as the fight goes along. So overall, you know, this is a very solid kit here. She's got multiple ways to sort of layer on different survivability effects and mechanics. Very limited in the range here though, in terms of her attack skills. It's just a range of 3 on all the skills here. So I think at least for autoplay, that's certainly fine. That's going to give her more opportunity to make sure that she gets, you know, both of her self buffs online. They're both going to be very important for her survivability. So a new limited vision card will be coming in alongside Glaciela. It's going to be called Seaside Showdown. This one's going to be effective for books, fists, katanas, and then the Sword A or Red Mage sword groups. So in terms of the stats here on the card, it's going to be physically tank oriented with the high HP and defense. The bestowed on it's going to be pretty bare bones with just the 9% HP, although a global upgrade was announced which is going to add some defense as well as some more healing power on there for Glaciela. This card is definitely going to be upping the ante in terms of area resistance, getting up to that 24% value with the main party effect, and then adding in some acquired AP as well as some debuff weakening there of 25%. So including that party effect as well as her passive, that will put Glaciela at 55% debuff weakening passively, which is going to cut any break or imperil against her right in half. It does also have a very nice vision ability here on the card, which does add a secondary counter effect for 3 turns, which will reduce strike damage coming in against you by 50%. So assuming that you can get that to trigger if there's no reaction block there on your enemies, you're going to be able to heavily cut into that damage. So all very, very nice stuff here on the card. In terms of the pure number of units who can actually use the card, it's definitely benefiting the water and lightning elements the most, as you can see there in the picture. I think though that this card is really going to be at its absolute best in a dual element comp with the water and ice elements, if you happen to have the Dark Esper vision cards of Odin and Dark Shiva, which just came out recently. And we're going to be taking a look at that specifically in the mock build here in a moment. Now, in terms of the weapon group for Glacy, she is going to be part of that Sword A or Red Mage group. Seems like almost every card these days is getting tacked on to that particular one, so here's just another one to add to the list this week. And once the Sahagan Prince card comes into the game, there's going to be a whopping 13 cards for this group here in Global. Still no unit resist or agility cards for the group, which is why I think those Dark Esper cards do work so nicely for it right now. Certainly a lot to work with here though, a lot of nice cards, a lot of nice units. So Glacy I think is doing very well for herself, at least in terms of her weapon group placement and the support for it right now. In terms of other groups that you might be able to mix with this particular one here, the Fist Connection I think does work very nicely with that new vision card that we just looked at. Don't sleep on the glove group though, which, to this point has come in on several cards, especially a lot of the global cards that we've gotten exclusively, and I think could represent a nice potential angle for team building. All right, guys, we're on to the mock builds now, and this one is going to be another one where I've slightly changed what I was doing there from the Future Look series. With the direction of the game design really switching from mono element more towards job synergy, over the past 9 to 12 months, I'll now be incorporating 2 different style of builds here in my reviews. One for mono elements and then one job or rainbow based build. Now for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through each and every fine detail of these builds, but I'll sort of give the general idea and sort of the premise behind it and then kind of go over the major points. So first we're going to be kicking it off here with this mono water builds. And of course we're going to have Glacy there as our frontline tank, which is going to have 2 damage dealers there behind her. Barris, I think, is going to work very, very nicely with Glaciela, and she's going to be able to provide some nice healing support there with her Sildra ability. And the heals are actually going to be pretty substantial with the high healing power that Glaciela has access to. In the 3rd spot, I'm going to put in Perrine. I think that she is the best damage dealer for water as it stands right now. But, someone like Asterius or Amnilus I think could work very nicely there as well. Now, speaking of Amnilus, I do think that Glaciela could afford her some new opportunities for play in the meta, being able to heavily cut into that high physical damage that she would otherwise take, while also being able to support Glaciela with a magic barrier and potent magic damage. Now, in terms of the equipment here in the build, we're going to be using Glaciela's new sword. It's going to give her some nice defense penetration there, but most importantly, it is going to be helping her survivability as well, where it does provide 10% all elemental resistance, assuming that she is above a 60% HP threshold. Now, comboing with that, I am going to be using the survival vest for the 15 unit resistance, and then Dialdo's boots there in the TMR slot for the agility and crit evasion. Now, if you don't have Dialdo's TMR, you can always use Ayaka's Sacred Step. They are very, very close in terms of these stats they bring. Now for the Esper, I'm going to be highlighting Dark Siren here, something that we don't have quite yet in Global, but we should have it maybe in the next week or 2. It doesn't immediately jump out as a tank Esper when you look at it, but I do think that it is very good for Glaciela. You get some unit resistance there, some resistance against paralysis, and then some additional debuff weakening, which is going to be very nice in the Alaya or Skahal matchups that we'll inevitably be seeing here in the future. To round it out for her, you can even throw in some magic resistance there on top of it. For the vision card setup, I'm going to be going with that area resist card that we just looked at, and I'm going to combo that with Dark Siren for the agility and strike resistance, and then Dark Odin for the attack value and unit resistance. Now overall here for the build, we are going to be looking to combat the meta threats of both the lightning and dark elements, and that's going to be reflected here in the Trust Stone passives as well. So you can see here in the stats, Glaciela is able to get quite bulky there even without reincarnation at well over 14,000 HP, and she is going to be really going toe for toe in that regard with the other mega tanks that we've seen recently, notably Dialdo and Raph. So moving into the second builds, and this is going to be all about that weapon class synergy. So all the units here are going to be part of that Sword A weapon group. And on top of that, these units are also going to share that synergy of that ice and water dual Esper connection. So again, of course, we're going to be utilizing Glaciela here as our frontline tank, and we're going to be backing her up here instead with Howlet and Reagan from the ice element. And these two units really do work at their best when they do have a tank in front of them to sort of take the brunt of the damage. Today, I think they do work really well with Snow or Dialdo. I think that they are going to work even better with Glaciela, just in terms of the immense vision card economy that they are able to share here. This composition is going to have incredible amounts of self-sustain and self-healing with the HP absorb capability from Howlet, and then the auto-healing effects of both Glaciela and Reagan. And I think this is where we're going to see these two damage dealers at their absolute best. Reagan's going to be able to amplify the team's damage with his Slash and Peril, while Howlet will support the team's survivability even further by debuffing the penetration values of the enemies, and that will stack with Glaciela's own ability to do so. So there's just an incredible amount of synergy here with this trio. Now the equipment here in the build is going to be identical to the previous one. For the Esper, I'm going to be highlighting a different one here, and this one's going to be Dark Golem. With this Esper, she's going to be able to pick up 10% lightning resistance, as well as 5% human resistance, which is going to be very valuable in hedging against her natural lightning weakness. Now again, for area resist, we're going to be using that Summer Vision card, and we're going to pair that with the Ice and Water Dark Esper cards for the unit resist and agility. Now, as I see it, once Bridal Alaya drops into the game, Lightning and Dark are going to be the top dogs in terms of the meta. So here, once again, we are heavily guarding against those threats in the build. Now, statistically, you can see, not quite as bulky as the previous build here in the stats. I think, though, that with the active sustain that this team is able to bring, it is going to help make up for it and then some. So those are going to be the two builds here today. If you are interested in taking a closer look at the finer details, I will include links to both of them in the description below. So what is my verdict today on Summer Glaciela? Well, it's all going to start with her bulk and self-sustain capabilities. Glaciela will be able to rival other recently released tanks with access to unit and area resistance, a barrier, protect, courage, auto heal back, elemental chain resistance, and a strong counter ability. What she has that the other tanks don't, though, is this new aura ability mechanic, not only heavily increasing their physical mitigation, but also their accuracy on top of that. Basically getting an Alex ring there for free as long as she is in range. Now on top of that supportive aspect, she does have some nice utility as well, having access to both a barrier break and a re-raise dispel. Both things that are much needed in both of the compositions that I highlighted here today. Glaciela does also have some nice flexibility in her passives and how you can build her, and that you can get her actually to some pretty decent agility levels while also increasing her mobility when you do need it. On the flip side, though, I think that as many of us here in Global know, Bridal Alaya is coming very soon, and she is absolutely broken. And her being the lightning elements and a unit that I think a lot of people are waiting and ready to pull for do make things just a little bit tricky for Glaciela in her water element. However, at least since her release in JP, it really hasn't impacted her viability at all, and she's getting a very high pick rate in the meta. And in fact, those two units are often played together. Aside from that, though, I think I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel here in terms of these drawbacks. At the end of the day, I think this is probably the best tank that we have seen to date. Yes, I think she is even better than Raph or Dialdo, as not only is she really going toe for toe and rivaling what they bring, but she's really jumping out a couple of steps further with that unique aura mechanic. And I think that ability alone would be worth pulling for, but I do think that this unit is going to be a true team enabler, especially of rainbow compositions for some time to come here in the meta. So that's it, guys. That is going to do it today for my review of Summer Glaciela. In terms of the review, not really all that much different than what I was doing before, but I did change some things around and I did change up some of the graphics as well, so I do hope that you find this new format useful. With our window of foresight closing, over in JP, I really needed to make some changes here that would help make this a bit more sustainable for me so that I could get this information out to you guys as soon as the units are released, and you guys could have that information to make informed decisions in the future. So let me know what you guys think about all that in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think of the unit and if you're going to pull for her as well. While you're down there, if you enjoyed the video today, hit that like button for me. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all that I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.